again, just to be a little redundant here, Paul, welcome to the family here. Glad you're on. And these fireside chats have actually been going now 41 sessions to date since COVID hit. We're now on fireside chat number 42. This particular series, we're in part 3 is about TEM and auditing to enhance your consulting practice and create significant ROI. And just to point out, most of the VAC community is, as well as the entire industry for that matter, is pushing towards the cloud. And most analysis that we've ever done points to the fact that cloud is typically never less expensive than some type of premises upgrade, okay, to the most current release. There's other advantages, of course, to the cloud, but that financial being one of them. And so, in our practice, we're always looking for ROI areas that will help pay for the increase to cloud. So again, some of what we'll be talking about today will lend itself, to that particular topic. Okay, so a quick polling question for everybody. This is a little bit interesting, it's a little bit different, but let's talk about audit income. So what do you anticipate as a technology consultant or VAC member, or even you can answer this as an audit consultant too, what do you anticipate as possible net income annually to your practice by adding audits and or TEM to your practice? Okay, so let me launch the poll. Okay, and it can be anywhere from 10K or less to 11 to 30K to 31 to 60 to 61 to 100 or 100 plus. And please vote. Awesome. And again, anybody can vote here, so don't be afraid. Okay, we'll run it another 10 seconds here.
Steve, quick question. This is Chuck.
Yes,
when you
Chuck.
say, what if you're a technology consultant and you already do some auditing? Are you asking what percentage of our revenue today is auditing, or if we were to ramp it up, what would we ramp it up to?
To ramp it up with a partnership, yeah.
Oh, well, then I have to rescind my vote if I can.
No, you can't.
I'll take it.
It's an estimate anyway.
It's not an exact science here, Chuck, just an estimate.
He knows.
Okay, so let me stop the poll. Let me take a quick snapshot here. Okay, just for my records. And let me share the results. So interestingly, 10K or less came up as number 1, followed by 61 to 100K as number 2, followed by a tie between 31 to 60 and over 100. So I think that's interesting results for all of our TEM and audit consultants here, just to give you a feel. And I'm sure this is an estimate and a perception, but I'm wondering, what the reality, could conceptually be. So maybe within your AEX group, Cindy and team, maybe you do a quick poll internally of what you all do, and then we can bring that back to the table when we do part 4 of this in a few weeks. Okay. So thanks everybody for this particular poll. Okay, and we'll continue. So recent happenings in the last week. Many thanks to Jane Lano, Cindy, and Greg Pittman for contributing to part 2 of our TEM audit series, and a replay is available. Great information last week, great conversation, and pretty compelling, actually. So number 2 is we have a client right now that we're working with, 20,000 endpoints, and they're replacing a multiple hundred site retail environment with SD-WAN, and they're actually pulling the plug on all survivable remotes. They happen to be a Cisco environment, so those are SRSTs. They are removing all PRIs, they are centralizing SIP trunking, and they're going to be using SD-WAN. So they're not only replacing the PRIs with nothing, actually there's spots on site for an E911, at least per site at the moment. They don't have a real true E911 solution just yet, which we'll talk to them separately on. But interestingly, they're using an SD-WAN in most cases, 2 public drops, replacing the MPLS account, if you will, an account team with taking it down to almost nothing because of this major change. And they're removing PRIs, and they're pushing everything to these 2 centralized SIP trunks. So interesting, interesting observation. I don't always agree with it, especially for critical sites, but it's something that they're doing and could be something of a trend. So interesting. Carrie's Law Task Force continues to attend and group together on Fridays at 1 p.m. They're working on documents that will be available to all of the members for sales and positioning purposes. So some great stuff coming to all the members. And aha moments continue. Chat in the group chat area on Zoom, please. And please mute and while we continue with the fireside chat today. So next week we have a great speaker. Okay, I reeled him in. Eric Kraft. Eric Kraft happens to be the general manager of Enterprise Connect and publisher of No Jitter. His company is now owned by Informatech, very, very large company. And he is obviously our go-to person, for alignment with the Sctc, for the articles that are published on No Jitter. He is the general manager. He conducts with Beth Schultz all of the sessions that are in Enterprise Connect, et cetera. So next week, he's going to be talking about communications and collaboration 2024. Okay, so he's going to give us some visuals on that, as well as he has a virtual event that's coming up around that as well. Actually, I'll be speaking on it. So should be interesting next week. So this week we have, we've got Cindy and we've got Robert and we've got Gary who will be presenting. Actually, I think it's Cindy and Robert today, right, Cindy, I think?
That's
Gary,
right, yes.
And Gary, we're going to move you to part 4, depending upon what time is available today. Okay, and then we have an infomercial. So APXNet. So Jared, you're on the call with us here.
Hey, thanks, Steve.
Okay, Jared.
Well, hello, everybody. You tell me when to go.
You go.
Okay, sorry. Well, hello, everybody. For those of you who have not met yet, my name is Jared Carrington. I'm with APXNet. So your first question is, what's an APXNet? We are a fiber network provider covering the entire U.S. and Canada. Now, it's important to know that we are a data-only provider, but we're also a reseller or an aggregator. So, your next question will probably be, well, if you're a reseller, how can you help me or how can you help my clients? Well, there's a couple of things that we do. The first thing that we do is we only provision type 1 circuits. Downtime is a business killer these days, especially when you have folks that work remotely. So we only provision type 1s to ensure the highest amount of uptime. You guys may know if you have a type 2 circuit, you're essentially adding multiple points of possible failure. So type 1s give us the maximized uptime with limited latency.
Great.
And the second thing that we do is we provision highly reliable networks. So whether that's SD Internet, SD-WAN, layer 2 networks with multiple DIA access, whatever's going to fit the customer's needs, we're going to provision it specifically for them. And lastly, the thing that I think I'm most proud of is we have a very unique invoicing system. There's been a lot of talk about audits, expense management over these past few weeks. We custom developed our own invoicing platform. One of the first things we do with the client is we sit down with them and say, Mr. Customer, you have X number of locations. How should this look on your invoice? Do you want them alphabetical? Do you want them geographical? How will this easily flow through your internal processes and not cause you some of those accounting nightmares? If they want flat rates for all their sites, we can absolutely do that as well. And after the first invoice comes out, we review with them, make sure that it's hitting their systems. That's going to make it a little bit easier for their accounts payable folks. A good example of this is we had a large client, 30 locations, about a dozen carriers, and one of their biggest headaches, accounting. Over 5 years, no billing errors, no mistakes. And they were very thrilled with that. And that's probably well over 1 minute, so I'll stop it there and I'll pass it back to Steve.
Yeah, so thanks, Jared. So just for the sake of anyone wanting to contact you, can you please just verbally give your email to everybody?
Yes, my email address is jcarrington@apxnet.com.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah, so you've got Jared's name right in your window there in his name. So jcarrington@apxnet.com. Okay. Well, thanks, Jared. Appreciate your infomercial. That was great. And Chuck, a word from our, oh, go ahead. Yep.
I was just going to say, guys, too, remember for members, when you log into the website, all primary contacts are up on our website when you log in as a member, guys. So if you need any help, let the website team know, and we'll take you there too.
Excellent. Thanks, Shara. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Chuck.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. A couple quick things. In 2 weeks, I mentioned this last week, we are having a consultant member only fireside chat. So if you're not an SCTC voting consultant member, you can free up your schedule for that slot. And then a business meeting of the consultants is scheduled for the end of February. There'll be more information on that in the newsletter, which goes out Friday. And you can reach out to me if you have any questions. We wrapped up our renewals for 2021. We did phenomenal. On the consultant side, we are well north of 90% renewals, and we're still chasing down a few stragglers. So much better than expected. I'm excited that we're starting the year way ahead of where we were last year, and we're expecting a lot of consultant growth. Finally, I want to make sure everybody's aware that San Diego, I believe it's November 1 through 4th, in beautiful San Diego, we're going to package our annual conference around some weekend golfing, bay cruise, lots of fun. So a lot of folks are planning family vacations around the conference. So if you're like me, you'll be dying to get on a plane and go somewhere after this COVID struggle we've been through. So look forward to seeing all of you in San Diego in November 2021. Thank you, Steve.
And hopefully we'll be done by then. In fact, we need to be, right? It's that simple. Okay.
Can't wait to see everyone again.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been too long. We love Zoom, but after a while, this virtual meeting stuff, we need to get some in-person stuff. Cindy, I'm going to hand the deck over to you.
Perfect. All right. Can y'all see that?
Sure can. Thanks.
Okay, let me get things squared away here. All right. Okay. Well, we're excited about presenting our third part now to our fireside chat presentation, where we're helping to explain how auditing and expense management can help build your consulting practices. Just to recap, we've talked about 2021 being the year of the audit. And we've been using the quote from Eric Kraft from his article, How Well Do You Know Your Communications?, where he talks about the pressure that businesses are under to reduce their costs for services underutilized and are no longer the right fit. So now is the perfect time for us to come in and to help our clients with audits. And keep in mind, an audit consists of a thorough inventory and review of communication technology services, including the use, cost, and contracts that are involved. And businesses this year are looking to tighten control of their spending. Audits will help to increase our business, but it will also help our clients' business. And what we want to present in these presentations are ideas on how we can partner before, during, and after a client engagement. And again, this week, we're going to be looking to Mr. Cleaver to help us with what's in it for me. He's going to highlight for us areas that can benefit non-AEX consultants, VAC members, or anyone that's viewing this presentation. So watch for him. And so what's in it for me on this presentation? We are hoping to show you ways that you can expand your business, that you can engage new clients, you can engage existing clients with new projects, and you can help identify areas for new projects for those clients. And ultimately, the bottom line is to increase revenue and ROI. Last week, Gary Pittman did a great job giving us ways to stay in front of our clients in order to gain insight of their business needs and to find areas where we as consultants can help them. So this week, to continue our presentation on how AEX can help your consulting business, I'm going to talk about a client dashboard that my office has developed. And as a segue from Jane and Greg's earlier presentation, this tool can help build and maintain lasting client relationships. The client dashboard provides customized reporting. It's specific to your client's needs, specific to their business and the services that are provided to them. It gives us a graphical view from a holistic telecom status of their communication technology that's being used by the client. It provides the client with monthly updates of information. And the dashboard also provides a visual format that's interactive and flexible, and it allows for drilling down into the data. So you get a high level view of the landscape that they have, but you can also drill down into the weeds. So once again, what's in it for me? What is the benefit to the consultants? Dashboards provide a standardized reporting tools to use with all your clients. It's an analysis tool as well that can be used to quickly find problem areas that need attention. It allows for the transfer of data directly from the supplier's web portal. It also is a tool that gives stickiness to your clients. As Greg stressed last week, this tool is another touch point that can help you stay in front of your clients. Clients will get used to receiving this dashboard each month and will come to rely on it for their own business. What's in it for the client? The benefits for the clients is they get a standardized reporting format that they become familiar with, and they look forward to receiving it with regular, consistent updates. It's a tool that your clients can use for their own reporting and detail needs within their organization. And again, it provides that holistic view of their communication technology landscape. So at this point, I'm going to switch real quick so that we can view the dashboard. All right, can y'all see that? Just adjust a couple things here. Okay. Just to give y'all some background, in my previous career, I was responsible for corporate application implementations, integrated ERP systems like SAP for Fortune 500 corporations. I was a project manager. I did the planning, management, implementation, trained users, and I helped users by finding tools to help them do their jobs better and easier. Tools that also helped make the reporting easier for them. I've been an AEX consultant for 20 years now, and I'm one of the founders of Abilita. And within Abilita, one of my specialties has been tools. I'm always searching for the best tools to use for analysis, optimization, and reporting. Tools that help us to work better and faster. Tools to get the data quicker. Tools that will highlight areas of concern that we need to research further. So this is a tool that my office has developed to improve analysis and client reporting. Now, this is a simple prototype that I use just to demonstrate the functionality of it, and it can be customized and changed in any way to match any client's needs and their business. So a dashboard tells a story. A dashboard gives us an update of the current situation while also comparing to historical information. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that's why I like graphics like this. So just to give you an overview, this is our dashboard. This is showing 3 years worth of data. So we can click through this and we can see 3 years of spend for this client. It also is giving us down below, it's giving us a breakdown of the information for a specific month by service, by account. We can even show that by top spend of accounts or by location. We can add supplier. We can even track savings, anything really that you have data that you want to track, we can put on a dashboard like this. So let me walk you through this client and some ways that we use this tool. We started with this client in the summer of 2018, and they were spending about $6,000 a month on their telecom services. And we started implementing changes for them. So you can see that they went from $6,000 down to less than $50 a month for a couple of months here. So let's look at what was taking place. So in July and August, this is their spend that they were having. September, if you notice, one account doesn't have any spend. October, we have some credits. So what's taking place during this time? Well, we looked at their services and we found ways we could reduce their spending. To start with, we found a couple of accounts that were billing for services that they were no longer using. They had disconnected, they thought they had disconnected these services earlier, but the billing had continued. So we were able to reduce those and eliminate those. And here is another one where we were able to go back and get billing error credits because we had proof of when they had requested these services be eliminated. Then we also had an account where they were spending over $2,000 a month on tariff rates. And so we were able to negotiate contract rates for them. We were able to get some billing credits and then drop their spend on that account to $800 a month. So again, we came in the summer, we helped reduce it, and what ended up after the dust settled in first part of 2019, they were spending about $3,500 a month. They went from $6,000 to $3,500, so 40% savings there. Well, then we had suddenly in May, the spend popped up. So we had to figure out what was going on there.
Hey, Cindy, that brings up a great point. I just got a notice from a major carrier the other day that any PRIs are going to have a dramatic increase within the next 3 months. Something like 30 to 40%. I haven't reviewed the proposed update, but yeah. You know what it is? Carriers now want to get out of the PRI business. It's legacy, it's digital. POTS they want to get out of too. We talked about POTS in a box last week, but yeah, just just an FYI.
Yeah, I know. I've found with some carriers, for the last couple of years, they wouldn't give you contract rates for PRIs as well. So yeah, it makes sense that they're going further with that. So anyway, so in May, we saw that it bumped up for some reason. So we started drilling down and figuring out what was going on. So in April, this account here was spending about $1,200. Then in May, suddenly it's over $2,000. So we knew that we needed to look at that particular account and find out what was going on there. We found a billing error. We got it corrected. And then we got some credits back based on that billing error. And then it went back to billing at the contract rates again.
Cindy, this is Cheryl. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So when you're looking at your data feeds that you're getting, because this is just like the contact center data, all right, so you're getting your multiple feeds, right, from the carrier. And if you do have PBX actually on-prem, different locations in that, so you're getting the feed from their CDR or whatever. So are you getting multiple feeds of data?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we pull in information. We can pull it off the invoice. We can pull it directly from the supplier's website. We can pull it from a CSV file, any form that you have it in.
Okay, thank you.
We even have some database systems that we pull it from as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Hey, Cindy, real quick, what software are you using to generate these reports?
This is actually built within Excel. It is using the advanced functionality of Excel. You've got pivot tables, pivot charts, slicers, and then also some VBS programming that's needed to pull in the data. So it's not your typical Excel, but it's a simple system, not easy, but simple to put together.
And that's
Okay,
a good
thank you.
leading question, Barb, because now my next thing is, do you ever recommended, are you going to host, do you tend to host it yourself on a server, or do you have your clients build their own server to host all this?
For our clients within Abilita, we do host a server. I'd be willing to set that up as well for other consultants within Sctc.
Thank you.
All right. So then we got that one account straightened out, and we went back to roughly a $3,500 a month spend. And then in November, it jumped up again. So we had to drill down again and find out what was taking place here. So if you look in November, it's about $1,200 for these accounts. And then suddenly this one account popped up over $2,500. Well, when we looked into that closer, we were able to see that they were on contract rates that had expired. And so they popped up to tariff rates. And so we were able to go in and negotiate new contract rates for them and get that implemented for that account. So then it did take a few months to get those contract rates in place and billing properly. Once we got it in place, then we got some credits back. But then we went back to the average of about $3,500 a month spend. And over the summer last year, of course, it was 2020. Most of their personnel was working from home. And the client called us in and asked us to help them with consolidating to one location. They currently were between two locations, Beaumont and Port Arthur, and they wanted to consolidate to their main location for all of their personnel in Beaumont, as well as all of their services, and just have a minimal footprint at the Port Arthur location. So we helped them with that over the summer. And then we implemented those changes, and we were able to reduce down. When we first started working with them, they had 8, and now we have them down to 4 accounts for services. And a majority of those services are at the Beaumont location now. And we were able to save this client 56% from what they were originally spending when we came in and talked with them. So as you can see, the dashboard it's an analysis tool as well as a reporting tool. It's a great tool to share with your clients. The charts can be shared. You can even capture these charts and put it within your existing reporting that you may have, or you can share it with your client in a file share via a web browser. And this is where, like we were talking about, we would host that on a server for them to access. And it can be accessed anytime, and it becomes a tool that your client relies on as well. It can also be used for wireless analysis and reporting. We're using that with several clients.
Cindy, when you do a change or update, I'm just thinking because it's something that you've built, do you then, well, let's say you weren't hosting it. Let's say you actually worked with a client and you put it on one of their servers and all that. So let's say you guys come up with a great change in Excel, a new feature functionality. Do you then roll back, or how do you work with that?
Well, each month we will pull the data in, and then if we'd make any changes or improvements to it, they will get that new and improved version of the dashboard.
Thank you.
And it will include the monthly updates as well as any functionality updates that we've added to it. So it can be customized for each client. It's very flexible and convertible, and it can be set up to match the complexity of your client's communication technology landscape. It gives spending trends, and it's broken down by accounts, suppliers, locations, or really any way that you'd like to see the data. We can provide it. As long as the data is there, we can build a dashboard to show that information.
Thank you.
And it does pull the data from the supplier's web portal or other database systems. We can also pull it directly from the invoices. It uses, as I had mentioned earlier, it uses Excel advanced features. It does require programming skills and an in-depth knowledge of pivot tables, pivot charting, things like that. I found that the dashboard functionality is much easier to use and maintain than other tools like Power BI or Crystal Reports or other reporting tools that consultants use.
Cindy, I'm just going to verify what I agree with you, because a lot of the contact center data that I work with, I actually do in Excel and use pivot tables. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because it does give a lot of what we need and we don't have to go to the advanced tools. So this is really neat.
Good. So I've developed this database tool for any client projects that I partner on. I'm also willing to develop this as a tool that can be used for any consultant's client. We will provide an initial setup and development for you that specifically meets the needs of your client. And then we will also do a monthly maintenance service that will transfer the data in. It populates the tables, updates the dashboard charting and reports, and provides a custom solution back to you each month. So it's ready to use for analysis and to provide information back to your client. It can also be white labeled with your company logo. You know, we've got the Ability logo here and the client logo over here, but that can be white labeled with your company logo and your client's logo. So if you're interested in looking at this tool further or getting more information, let me switch back here.
So Cindy, while you're doing that, Julie Bernhardt has a question. Does this drill down into line item detail?
It can. As long as we have the data to support it, it can, yes.
Okay, cool.
So if you're interested and would like to discuss this further with me, feel free to email me and we can set up a time to talk about it.
Fantastic, thank you.
All right. And next we're going to shift gears and we're going to talk about how to audit cloud services. This is really a new area for auditing and expense management. And Robert is our guru within Sctc. So he's going to walk us through the details of this aspect of AEX services.
So Robert, before you just start, I know there's a common perception out there that cloud billing is simple and has no anomalies. So I'm sure you're going to shed light on that during your presentation today.
Yeah, I sure will. Thank you. And thank you, Cindy, for the introduction. I actually, even though this is a new area, I first started thinking about cloud cost management back in 2009. I had a Dell, actually it was a company called Smithbridge that hosted a SharePoint database for me, and they sold it to Dell, and Dell kind of orphaned it and left the support offshore. And I had stopped using it, and it took me about 3 to 4 months before I could prove to them through not logging in utilization reports that they shouldn't be billing it for me. And then they even wanted me to pay half. It was just ridiculous. And I thought, this is as ridiculous as a phone bill. And then that was really my aha moment for cloud. I thought, as things move to the cloud, you're going to have that same kind of issue that you had with deregulation of phone services, where bills will be confusing and inconsistent and people will start needing help. So the cloud services auditing it, we find savings where there was no wire to trace. And as more and more services become virtual, there's less and less wires, and we have to use other tools to figure out what's going on with our costs. The other thing, and this is the what's in it for me, our Ward Cleaver or Madman or whatever, the 50s guy, is to offer something new that aligns with future IT services. It just as many consultants, their foot in the door back in the 1990s was the confusion of the new phone bills with deregulation. You have that same opportunity with cloud. And for anybody who's an implementation or project consultant, haven't you been doing cloud versus on-premises cost of ownership analysis for the last 5 years at least? I know I have. I haven't worked on any project of any side for a contact center or a PBX implementation where that question hasn't been asked. So there's a real interest in cloud cost management, even at the beginning of brand new projects. We can go to the next slide. I did want to take a quick moment to compare cloud service audits to telecom audits. And back in the day when the Bell companies broke up, telecom and data services, the cost management originally relied on a lot of insider information. This has changed even on the telecom side now, but back then, if you had worked for one of the Bell companies, so you might become a bill auditor and you would know about some kind of weird tariff exception where, oh, that's your 10th line up to your 100th line, so you shouldn't be paying this surcharge. And a lot of times I think the commissions were super high too, because it was such insider information. But you would come in and very quickly be able to look at a bill and say, that's not right. And you would then collect your money, and the client, you'd be a hero. Most contracts now are de-tariffed, which means that they are no longer under strict tariffs, basically, that would prevail over any other terms and conditions, but they still rely a lot on posted terms and conditions. And the whole where there's no wire to trace. Equipment connectivity generally supports your inventory and validation. That means you can have somebody go out with a butt set or some kind of tone and probe to trace lines and figure out where, if everything else fails and you can't figure out where a line goes to, you can have some go out and trace the wire. Cloud computing and software as a service, there really has never been any secret knowledge. And that, for a lot of the same reason that's changed on the telecom and data side, everything is out there on the internet. If I want to look up anything and I want to dig up any information, I can find it if I'm persistent enough. And it's the same thing with cloud and computing services. You can find out anything about pricing, anything about different terms and conditions and negotiation, but there's a lot of complexity to it. So even though and you are right, it isn't as simple as just seats. It's a lot of complex, different components. I'll just give one example. I'm going to just read this because I didn't have a chance to anonymize it, but I did a Salesforce.com benchmark exercise. And you would think Salesforce.com, it's like, what are they paying for every agent that's using Salesforce? Simple. They actually were getting a very good rate for the agents, but there was so much to reverse engineer. They had partner community, they had data storage, data transport, they had a sandbox for development, they had a full sandbox, they had the customer community access, and then on top of that, they had all kinds of API tools with a company that they had acquired called MuleSoft. I'm sorry, this is that Salesforce acquired the API manager and connectors. They also were looking at some advanced language analysis tools that Salesforce now provides. So just because it's a cloud subscription doesn't mean it's a bunch of per seat subscriptions. There can be a lot of complexity. Contract term changes often include very limited cancellation options. You don't have the same protection that we used to have with the regulated phone companies. They can pretty much put anything in a contract they want, and as long as it's legal and you sign it, you're bound to those contracts. And finally, the last thing that makes it different is that there is no physical connectivity, but there's lots more tools to measure usage. And I've showed these two examples of a Microsoft Invoice and the AWS management tool. They tend to be more cleaner and more consistent tools and ways to manage usage. So the maturity of all the TEM processes are actually a really good starting point for managing costs, but it's not the whole story. Let's go on to the next slide. And this can be cut a few different ways, but this is just how I slice and dice it. There's four main categories of unnecessary cloud costs. The first is oversubscription, and oversubscription and underutilization sound the same, but they really aren't. Oversubscription are services that are valid services, but they may have redundancy. Maybe somebody already has a conferencing tool. They have an enterprise agreement for a conferencing tool, and then you have people that are using WebEx instead of Zoom, even though there's a Zoom enterprise agreement. Or maybe you have people rolled out a pilot program of some cloud UCaaS system, but they they gave everybody the features when they decided it was great and wonderful, and we're going to roll it out to the whole enterprise. They rolled it out to absolutely everybody with every feature, and you have a lot of people that really just use the basics, and that can be true for Office tools like Office 365 and G Suite as well. A lot of oversubscription with both redundant services and unused features. The second is underutilization. And these are forgotten trial services and unused accounts. With cloud, you don't need to be in the IT department to go get something. You can just use your company P card or charge it back to an expense account. My best story on this actually was a company where they had someone in the sales department that had a WebEx account that they were charging on their company expenses. The company AP department would say, oh yeah, we use WebEx, this must be valid, and they were paying it. Well, they actually had a WebEx enterprise agreement that they weren't leveraging. So they were using exactly the same services that was available to them through an enterprise agreement, but just charging it, and it looked like it was a valid charge. So a lot of redundancy and a lot of underutilization of services. Uncompetitive costs with cloud. So much of it is new, and so much of it is starts out as a trial, that often companies, as they expand and grow, they missed volume leverage. They missed the opportunity to get a better rate. I looked once at a backup and storage solution that a value-added reseller had put in for a company, and they were paying more than the retail rate. When you could actually just go on the website and look at this product and say, wow, they're paying more per terabyte than retail. And the reason was the VAR in the initial implementation, in order to compensate themselves, which is fair enough, they were designing a whole backup and storage solution. They had done a markup on, and then as the solution scaled bigger and bigger, that markup remained. So they never went back and looked and decided, oh, well, we're still paying a reseller fee on top of every terabyte we're buying of this backup and storage solution. And then cloud inefficiencies. This has to do with cloud computing tools like Azure and AWS. A lot of times you can use an older, less efficient database that's slower, and it will actually cost you more. You can have all kinds of services, including snapshots of your whole computing environment, that just sit there and do nothing for you. And the real secret with things like AWS and Azure is you don't, they say that you only pay for what you use, but you actually only pay for what you subscribe to. So if you're subscribing to it, even if you're not using it, you're going to pay for it. So let's go on and talk about the 3 basic questions that we ask and the action that we take in order to do cloud services. And if you've done telecom expense management, these will look very familiar. The first question we ask is, should we even have it? And this maps right to our inventory phase. We start by identifying and validating all of the correct services and subscriptions, making sure they're right, making sure they're not redundant, making sure they actually belong to someone. We then ask, are we paying the right amount for it? This is our benchmarking phase. We obviously have to make sure we have a good baseline, that we have the right quantity through the inventory, and then we identify the best contract and best market rates for any of the high volume services. And then the last phase is, what's the best way to use it? And that's where we optimize. We analyze cloud service utilization on virtual machines, platforms, and databases, and really figure out a whole holistic plan for a company to best optimize their cloud services. We do have some success stories, and I do want to point out, because we're talking so much about partnerships, 2/3 of these examples are through partnerships. Very little of this have I done myself without partnering with someone. And the first one is actually a partnership with another Sctc consultant. It was very successful. We identified, we benchmarked some hosted data services. They were costing $168,000 a year over the best market rates for a whole network of assisted living facilities. And actually, this was Denise, and she advertised this through the listserv. This is like an absolute 100% Sctc success story, because she said, I need someone to help me with some cloud services, and I contacted her. And we started working on this together, and it turned out that they were paying way too much. We ended up doing a competitive RFP and got the rates down by 30% and saving the company $168,000 a year.
Did you say with the same vendor, Robert?
We actually did, and originally they said no after our benchmarking, and then after it went to a competitive RFP, they said yes. And they actually, so it was a very, very effective project. She was great to work with on it. She's great with vendors, really, and it was just wonderful. The second was some enterprise software as a service. The one that I was talking about was Salesforce with all the components. $188,000 a year savings on a $1.2 million Salesforce renewal contract. I'm going to be fully disclosed. They didn't take action on this. They had a very, very good rate for their Salesforce base product, but all of those extra components they were paying list price for, which a lot of times on big things. The second one was the same way. That was actually an Akamai content delivery network, lots and lots of different components. Usually people will just look at the core product and say, oh, we're only paying such and such per seat for this. What are you paying? But if you're paying $150,000 or more for all the peripherals, you're not saving money. They're making it up elsewhere. So there's a lot of good potential in cost benchmarking of enterprise software as a service. And then cloud subscriptions audits is almost like the POTS line or the analog telephone line audits of the cloud. This is where you just look and cross-reference whether people are using services or not. And a lot of times people will keep, for example, a full Office 365 subscription when they're just preserving the email. This first example, we saved 40% on someone for Office 365 because they were doing exactly that. They did not want to lose emails, and so they never downgraded the subscriptions. And even G Suite is a pretty lean and mean component, but there were old accounts that they were preserving people instead of putting them in the Google Vault, giving them a Google Vault account where they could still preserve their data. So lots and lots of different examples in the cloud of real world return on investment. If we go to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the steps to savings with a software as a service audit and inventory. We get as many information sources as possible. There should be so many available. And how do you, if you don't have wires, how do you map the services? You actually have to map them to a person, or you have to map them more accurately to permissions. There's always within somebody's Active Directory network, there's some kind of permission that is given for any kind of services. So first we look at the invoices. We try and include indirect sources. That would be anything on a general ledger report that's shown as a software subscription through someone's expense account, or anything for different departments that they're paying directly. But as much as we can get the invoices, we start with that. We make lists of the services, or we get lists of the services that they're having, and any kind of company directory, and even locations. You say, why do you need locations if you're auditing cloud services? A lot of different cloud services are actually mapped to locations, even though they're cloud. It just helps. The more you can look at a whole picture of the company, the more you can identify savings and gaps where there's no utilization. And then LDAP exports, this is typically Active Directory, but it could be some other kind of directory system, and GL reports, which I said before. We then find every cost. Like we said, we map every cost to a service and map every service to a user. Services may also be mapped to some kind of a team, or they can be mapped to a location. And then we cross-reference services to verify users. A lot of this we do through just long, basically merges of spreadsheets and different analysis tools that we've developed, and also a lot of mapping of reports to individual users to find out the utilization of services. And then last, we do audit and optimize. We get rid of any unused or redundant services. We audit consumption of, and you might have people that have a valid account and they're still a real employee, but they're just not using things. We look for contract compliance. That's very important. A lot of times things will not get the contract rate, just like with telecom audits. Look for any rogue services, and then we do benchmarking. As much as possible, we do the cleanup before the benchmarking. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and we only have 1 minute, so let me just give a snapshot on this, the next page. This is too much to go over, but I just want to talk about the challenge with cloud computing audits. And the biggest challenge is that most cloud deployments are not yet commoditized. That is, companies aren't seeing them as an expense. They're part of a very well-funded digital transformation project, and they tend to be a pet project still, and it can be difficult to get access. So we start with the subscriptions and the kind of less glamorous things to begin with, and then build the trust in order to get to cloud computing audits. But there's a lot of good tools available. And if you look at the bottom, there's tons and tons of components, even in cloud services to audit, including underutilized resources that have been committed by the company. There's even ways with Amazon, for example, to sell that back to another user just within the platform. So lots and lots of potential for cloud computing cost optimization as well. So thank you.
A quick question from Cheryl. What are rogue services, Robert?
Rogue services, I have a, rogue services are services that somebody has put in, like that rogue IT or shadow IT. That's just a term I use for it, where people have just put in their own cloud subscriptions because they wanted it and they didn't want to go through the company.
That makes sense, Robert, because when you said everything's coming under the digital umbrella, that just reminded me of Y2K. Everything got thrown in there and really nobody questioned the cost, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hopefully we made money off that if we were if we were part of the Y2K initiative.
Oh boy, did we ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Robert. That was great. Cindy, wrap it up. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Robert, for giving us this overview on how to audit cloud services. This is a specialized field, so reach out to Robert to ask more questions, or you can go to his website, auditthecloud.com. And we have a fourth part to our AEX presentation, which we will give at another fireside, probably mid-March is what we're looking at now. And we'll have AEX consultants Gary Lisbon and Art Yonemoto, who will provide details on partnering with Sctc consultants. And keep in mind, here's where you can go to get more information on AEX. We have our monthly meeting. Typically, this is the first Wednesday of each month, but this month it will be next week. So on February 10th will be our video call. If you'd like to attend that, it's open to anyone. Just shoot me an email and I'll send you the coordinates to it.
Great.
And also watch your inbox. We are developing some tips on how to discuss AEX with your clients to generate more interest. And we expect to have these available in the next couple of weeks. And then also you can use the Sctc website, the Find a Consultant, and you can also reach out to an AEXC member directly. On the website, you just once you've logged in as a member, go to Find a Consultant and make sure you check the audit expense and management. And just again, want to thank all the contributors, not just the speakers that were involved in this. We had several behind the scene as well. So we want to say a special thanks to all the contributors and thank you for your attention these 3 weeks.
Yep.
Good job.
For joining. Yep. And we will see you next week with Eric Kraft. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
Yeah, thank you.
Super job. Thanks.
Stay safe.